All right, let's dive in. Today we're going to try and demystify mental health. We'll break down what it really means, separate some facts from fiction, look at the fascinating theories that try to explain our inner worlds, and see how the right kind of relationship can be an incredibly powerful tool for healing. Let's get to it. So, let's kick things off with a question that really gets to the heart of it all. We hear the terms mental health and mental illness thrown around all the time, sometimes used interchangeably. But are they actually the same thing? Figuring that out is the absolute first step.
Okay, so think of it like this. We all have physical health, right? But thankfully, not all of us have a physical illness. It's the exact same logic for our minds. Mental health, what you see on the left, that's our general state of well-being. It's about our ability to cope with life stresses and, reach our potential. Mental illness, on the other hand, refers to specific, diagnosable conditions that really get in the way of that ability.
And this right here might be the single most important idea to get straight. Mental illness is not a flaw in someone's character. It's not a lack of willpower. It's a medical issue, a diagnosable dysfunction that very often has biological or physiological roots. Getting this is absolutely foundational to everything else. Okay, so if it's a dysfunction, then what's causing it? Well, that question takes us right into the major theories that try to explain the why behind mental illness. And we're going to start with the actual hardware of the brain itself. First up, you've got the biological model, and it's pretty straightforward. It basically sees abnormal behavior as the result of a physical problem inside the brain. So it makes sense that the treatments are physical too. We're talking about medications, that's pharmacotherapy, and different kinds of brain stimulation therapies. It's really a hardware-focused approach. And deep inside that hardware, you've got these super important chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. As you can see in this table, when they get out of balance, it can have a huge effect. For example, if your serotonin is too low, that can be linked to depression. Or if dopamine is too high, it's often associated with schizophrenia. These little messengers are incredibly powerful, and a lot of medications work by helping get them back in balance. But hey, what if the problem isn't just in the brain's hardware? Shifting gears from biology to psychology, we run right into Sigmund Freud. His psychoanalytic theory was a pretty radical idea for its time, that our problems as adults often come from conflicts we never dealt with as kids, stuff that gets buried deep, deep down in our unconscious mind. You've probably heard of Freud's famous iceberg analogy, right? The little tip you see above the water, that's our conscious mind. But the huge hidden part underneath is the unconscious. Down there you've got the id. Think of it as your primal, pleasure-seeking inner kid. Then there's the ego, which is kind of like the realistic adult trying to deal with the real world. And the superego, that's the internalized parent, all about rules and morals. For Freud, all the real drama is happening below the surface, where these three are always in conflict.
All right, now let's zoom out a bit. We're moving from the deep internal world of the unconscious to the world right around us, our relationships. For a theorist named Hildegard Peplau, the key wasn't what's buried inside us, but how we connect with other people. She viewed therapy as a very structured relationship that moves through 4 clear phases, all built on a foundation of communication and trust.
But what if all that inner world stuff is just too complicated? The behaviorists, guys like Pavlov and Skinner, they sure thought so. Their view was super simple. Let's just focus on what we can actually see, behavior. They argued that our actions are just learned responses, and if a harmful behavior was learned, well, it can be unlearned and replaced with a better one. And that brings us to a revolutionary idea that kind of blended our behavior with our inner world: cognitive theory, which is the whole foundation of CBT. The core idea is so simple, but wow, is it powerful. It says it's not events themselves that upset us, it's our thoughts about those events. So if you can change those destructive thought patterns, you can change how you feel and how you act. It's been an absolute game changer for treating things like anxiety and depression. And to wrap up this little whirlwind tour of theories, we've got the humanistic view from Abraham Maslow. He gave us the famous hierarchy of needs. His idea was really optimistic, that all of us are trying to be our best selves, to reach what he called self-actualization. But you can't just climb to the top of this pyramid until the layers at the bottom are totally secure.
And listen, this is the absolute non-negotiable foundational rule of Maslow's whole idea. You just can't work on someone's self-esteem if they don't know where their next meal is coming from. In any kind of care situation, you always have to address the physiological needs first. Safety, food, water, shelter, that's the bedrock. You got to start there.
All right, so that's a whole lot of theory. But how does any of this actually work in the real world? Well, it all boils down to one critical thing: the therapeutic relationship between a caregiver and a patient.
You know, a professional therapeutic relationship isn't just being friends with a patient. It's totally different. It's a carefully built partnership that is always focused on the patient, it's collaborative, and it's built on respect. But maybe the most important piece of all, the thing that holds it all together, is having clear professional boundaries.
And I really can't stress this enough. The boundaries between a professional and a patient are what make the whole relationship safe and effective. Blurring those lines, like for instance, starting a personal relationship after they're discharged, is a huge ethical and professional violation. Seriously, it's a line to just do not cross. So if that relationship is the container, then communication, the words we use, that's what fills it up. The words we pick can have a massive impact, and in a therapeutic setting, you've got to be so intentional with that communication. So what does good therapeutic communication actually sound like? Well, the best tools are often the simplest. Active listening, like really hearing someone out. Using silence to give them space to think. And asking open-ended questions, not why, but things like, how did that feel? Or tell me more, that invite them to explore without feeling judged. Now on the flip side, it's so easy to fall into these common communication traps. Jumping in with unsolicited advice, that can take away their power. Asking why questions can immediately make people defensive. And offering false reassurance, saying, oh, it'll all be fine, can feel really dismissive and just shut the conversation down. These gut reactions can often do way more harm than good. Look, if there is just one thing you remember about communication from this whole explainer, please let it be this. The goal isn't to be a fixer, it's to be a validator. Just acknowledging that someone's feelings are real and legitimate. Saying something like, wow, that sounds incredibly difficult, is infinitely more powerful than trying to jump in with a solution. So there you have it. We've gone from the difference between mental health and illness to a speed run through the major theories of the mind and landed on the incredible power of relationships and the words we use. So we'll leave you with one last question to think about. Now that you know this framework, how does it change the way you think about mental wellness? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.